Yeah, it's recording. Ricardo?
Okay.
Now here.
Okay.
Marco,
Yes.
can you just give me a small definition of why we use arrays
Why? For data.
for data?
Yeah.
Okay, but what does specifically arrays do?
They contain data structures.
So it's kind of things like string does.
Yes. Yeah, a string contains a string. An array contains a lot of things, basically. And because a lot of times we're going to use a lot of strings once we build a real application, let's say. But arrays is something really needed.
Arrays is like a big.
For instance, in one of your projects in the beginning in HTML, you had a list of things, right? That would be an array, definitely.
Okay.
But for instance, if you had a headline, like the title, that's a string.
String. Okay.
So that would be the most common use is if you would have a string, a list, then it would be arrays for sure, without a doubt. Okay, so as I wrote on the chat, we will go through the homework of week 3. And because the homework of week 3 touches on everything we learned until now, and if it doesn't touch, we'll make it. So, yeah, we'll make it touch. So let's just start with it. Again, as I've been saying, there is a lot of ways of solving the same issue over and over again. And the way that we might solve it here might not be the best, or might not be the way that you would think how to solve it. And that's a very hard thing to, and I know that was a question on last class, is like, what should I do in order to solve a problem? Where should I start from? That's very hard because that goes from person to person. Some people start one way, some people start another. But today I will show at least how I do it, and then we'll go through it. I'll just create, this, and now a JavaScript file here. And console log. We are going to solve all work.
Will you be recording?
Yeah, I am recording already.
Can you increase the font size just a little bit?
Yes. Better?
Maybe a little more.
If it's much more, then it doesn't fit.
I know.
Yeah, I'll close that other tab. Now I need to find, actually I should not have closed it. I need to find this and open. So I'll zoom this so we can see. Close, close. So, I will close that one. So it, of course, it has all these free code camp exercises that I would suggest you to do at home when you have the time. But we will go through the ones that are written as exercises here. This actually, I don't know if some of you noticed, but this changed from our previous module 1. Before it was an array of numbers. I just noticed that this morning. But basically what it says, what it asks us to do is that from the list, from this array names, remove this name. And it already has things here. Again, I would suggest you by just copying the code because that's basically what it is telling us to do here. So let's just paste. Close this one. So now, and as we all know, these are comments, and comments are good because it explains what we are doing or what we have to do. And just by pasting this here, we can try to see what it happens, and it prints out all the names, but it doesn't do the output we want because we want to remove this one, which is the second item on the array. Now, I'll leave those comments actually. And sometimes it's good for us to write what's called pseudocode, which is not code exactly, but it's just like write on your language, like what do you have to do. So what we have to do is to remove position 2 from the array. And this is the very lazy way of doing it, right? Because what the exercise asks us is to remove this name, right? So, and we know where that name is, right? It's on the position 2. So we could easily just remove position 2, but that's not the solution that it's asking us. Is to what we learned until now, the for loop that we can go through an array and then we can compare. So this is not the way we want. So what we want is to remove value of name to remove from names. This is basically what we want to do. So we'll write only comments now. So if we make a for loop on the array, what do we get? We can get the values of the array, right? We all know this. So then we only need to compare the values with the name to array. Too many R's. And if the names match, remove the item, right? This is what we have to do. And now we have comments. Now we just need to fill out the blanks with code, of course. And sometimes, and again, that goes from person to person, we might think like, oh, but I don't know this part. I don't know how to remove an item. But there is a lot of stuff we can do right now without knowing how to remove the item. So we should not try to solve the whole thing at once when we don't know how to solve the whole thing at once. So let's just start for the for loop. That one we should know by heart now. So we just start names.length, right? I++. So this creates the for loop. Now I have all this thing written here, but this should happen inside of the loop. So let's just move it inside so that we keep it here and make it pretty. So now I need to compare the values, and we know how to get the values, right? We know that if we write names of I, this gives us each value, right? And just to confirm, we will do this. So in here we got all the values that we know. Good. We don't remove it. We comment it out. And to compare, we also know that it's an if, right? And again, one of the reasons why I say to write the pseudocode in comments, it's just by writing English, you almost write code, because this is what we have to do if the names match, right? So names of I, and we want to compare each one of them with that one. So we will say equals of name to remove. And I will just move this comment up there so that there is comment and then execution and then comment and execution. And now let's just console log inside of it just to see what's happening. And now we will say, just to see, is this the item we want to remove? Yeah. And it is, right? And now it comes to the part that we might not know how to do. So that part, of course. Remove item from array JavaScript. We actually looked at this one already. Any of you remember?
The splice, you can use the splice, you can also,
It's there. Oh, I like this one more. We looked at this page, maybe, I don't know if it was last week or the week before or the other one, whatever. But again, this was the only thing we were not sure what to do. So we know that there is something splice, right? So let's just see what happens when we do something with it. So we have names, splice, and in here, as I also showed you, your Visual Studio Code or whatever you're using usually tries to help you and explains what you should do. So in here we want the start, which in this case is damn it, the index, yeah, that we want to remove, which would be the I. And this one actually, we want to remove one, right? This should be it. Oh, let's just maybe console log the name before the whole thing happening so we can compare. So we had 8 items, now we have 7 items, and the name that we wanted to remove is gone. Now, we could, by mistake, not understand exactly what the documentation of Splice says and write the, actually this would kind of still work, right? Because it's the exact same number. but if we write 2, we were lucky that it was the same number. And now we can see like, oh, it actually removed this one, right? It removed Yana instead. So just by changing values here and console logging it and trying it out, that would be, of course, the way. In the documentation, they also kind of explains what goes where. But of course, you would have to understand that this is the index of the array. And I've been doing this a lot, but some people actually do this, give the value of, instead of giving I, they call index, because this would be maybe, for some people, a better way to actually understand. Let me open here, yeah. Because that's what we have been referring to these values is the index of the array, and that's kind of the reason why we use the character I, because it stands for index. But yes. So exercise 1, we did something very similar at some point. Is there any question on this one? If
on the splice actually, you put a I, right? You put the I and on 1, right? You can also, if I remember correctly, I'm not sure, you can also put like on the splice you can put the number where to start and how many items to remove. Is that correct? Or
that's what this one stands for, I think. Yeah, it's a delete count. So if we put 4, it just removes 4 from that position.
From that position you start.
Yeah. Actually, it should be optional if we do this. No.
It removes the rest.
Yeah, it removes everything. Yeah, exactly. And we don't want that. But again, it does not cost anything to try and see what happens if I do this, what happens if I do that. And again, you can always use the comments to explain to yourself later on. Index is the item to remove, and 1 is the number of items from index to remove. Yeah. If we don't give a num of items, it removes everything left. And of course, for some people, this might be way too basic and I don't need these comments, but sometimes we need the comments because it explains what you're doing, or at least what you're trying to do. Because if if you would solve the homework like this, even though the output is not correct, this doesn't mean that it's completely wrong, because again, you did most of it. And as we wrote through the comments, we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to do that, and only that part failed. That's not the problem. Again, it's true, it doesn't do the response that we are waiting for, but it is okay to deliver something like this. Yeah. Okay, I'll just rename this because I'll make one per file. Part 1. And now we will create another one, and I will just comment this one out. Yeah. Part 2. So the second exercise, I will, oops, zoom in a bit more. Yeah. So yeah, the second exercise is to calculate some travel information, right? Now, again, let's just copy and paste whatever they are giving us. And right, and let's try. Of course, we get errors because there is stuff missing. And it's actually telling us not to use this function name, but we can use this function name, right? It's a function name that is not defined yet. So we could actually just, okay, wait, there is some, yeah, like this. So basically giving in some travel information that contains an object. And we learned this last week. An object is an object that contains a key value, and the key has to be unique, and it can be whatever word or combination of words put together that we want, and then a value too. And as we saw in last class, the object is way better to get the data because we know exactly what we are getting. We can say the object dot and then the name or the age or whatever. And if we would store this data into an array, it would be crazy to figure out what is what and where to get what. So, sorry. So yeah. So now in here, basically what we want is, sorry. Yeah. So we want a function, right? And the function takes travel information as parameter, right? And the function has to calculate hours and minutes based on, and this is the information we have now. So we have speed and we have the distance, right? Yeah, speed and distance. And of course, return in format. And now this is the format we want. So we want to return hours and minutes, right? So, and we are given this pieces of code that says not this function name, which basically they are telling us like, please rename to something better. So, so maybe let's do that instead. Yeah, here. So we have a function, and our function needs to have a name, and in here we can say calculate travel information, right? And this is how we define a function. That's not new for us, so we know how to do this very easily. Now I move these ones inside of the function, and now this one is calling something completely different, so we should of course rename, right? So now travel time has this, and we are console logging travel time. Just to make sure that things are working, at least, we can just return something. We've seen functions that we have not returned. They don't need to return anything because they do something else. But in this one, we have to return because we are pointing the value of the function to a constant here. So it means that we should return something from it. So right now, let's actually just return this as a string, right? Let's see what happens here. Well, exercise is done, right? It returns what we asked for, or not. So in here, we know that this whole part is working just by having this output here, because our function is returning something, so we don't have to worry here. Now we have to worry on calculating what the hell is happening. And we wrote here that it takes travel information as a parameter. I'm going to use a different name here. Wait. As information as a parameter. I don't know if this makes sense, but I will explain after. So now we have, and now we will log it just to see what is happening. And this information is this information. So now, yeah, we have exactly the object that we are passing here to the function as a parameter here. We are console logging and it shows correct. Now I used a different name because for some people that sometimes might be confusing of using the same name outside of the function and then the same name inside of the function. Is completely safe because whatever is on a parameter of the function, it only has the function scope. But if we do not send it here and we try to use this one here, it gives us the same result because this travel information is defined outside of the function scope. So let's just use a different one so we don't confuse it. My throat is killing me a bit. So now we have speed and we have distance. And we need to get the time, right? Because hours and minutes, we'll figure out how to handle hours and minutes. For now, what we want is speed and distance. This exercise might have required you a little bit of mathematics because, so we all know that it's kilometers per hour, right? This is speed, right? So basically it's this, why did I didn't wrote hours, sorry. So basically this is distance divided by time equals speed. So we want the time, so it should be what?
Distance? No, what? Can you ask again?
We don't have speed. We don't want the speed. We have speed and we have distance. That's the two values we have here.
The distance divided by the speed.
And we want the time now.
So it should divide the speed by
Yeah. Yeah, I'll remove this because this is basically a duplication. Now, in at least in a lot of times at your workplace, you kind of need to figure out mathematics because
This
per-
one is actually physics.
and physics, yes,
Physics.
that does happen a lot of times because yeah, that happens. So this is basically what we have to do, and we know that on this information we have the speed and we have distance. So let's just do exactly what we did here, but now with values on it. So we will do exactly the same. So we have information dot destination distance divided by information dot speed. And now we have time here, right? And whatever this is, we don't know. Do we know what's the?
It's the hours decimal.
Yeah, but this is in kilometers, right? Probably. Yeah. Again, sometimes, and back to the object, this is completely valid because we are getting it from the information here. But if we want to use the same names that we gave here, so we can very easily do that. We just need to do this. Speed, right?
Question.
Yes.
Where did you assign the object to the information parameter? Is that like when you put it as a parameter, it gets automatically assigned to it because you're using the dot notation there to information destination distance?
Yeah.
Is that automatically assigned? to the
Yes.
object?
On
That's the part that of JavaScript that kind of a little bit.
Check
confusing.
it
Yeah.
here. It's calling the function right here
Okay.
and then passing in the object from up there.
Ah, okay. Okay, I didn't see it at the bottom. It's at the bottom there. So you're calling the function at the bottom.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, this part was the part we copied from the exercise, but as long as you pass, you can pass like whatever name you want on it, and you can use a complete different name inside of the function. That's basically it gets assigned to that name and only lives on that scope because the function is from here to here. Down here, we cannot use the word information. I mean, we can, but it won't have the same value. It will be a complete different variable because it's outside, or it's actually inside of the different scope. So it's not here. And that is back to my point that we could have this. We could have travel information here, but some people might mistake it by actually being that one up there, which is not.
Okay.
If we would use it like this, it's not this one. It ends up being because we are passing it down here, but it's not.
It's not the object.
It's a complete new variable with the same values, basically. So in here, I basically just assign the values of the of each object, the keys of the values of each object to its own ones. God damn it. And now what we have to do now from this number, which is 8.64, we need hours and we need minutes, right? So how do we do that? Any idea? Because I don't remember.
Background, I think.
Nope. So we have,
I saw the hours with parse int, like the parse integer number. and you use math round to the time to destination minus hours times 60, whatever that is.
Well, 60 usually means minutes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, we can always.
It worked, but I can't
Sorry.
remember.
Ah, my throat is really killing me today. Ah. So again, you can always search to. Let's start with JavaScript, otherwise it will be a bit crazy. Convert hours to minutes. This might be not what we're looking for. And as Ricardo said, and actually in most of them they should mention this, maybe not. No. But Ricardo mentioned something called parse int, right? And that's what they show in a lot of the solutions. So we should, again, sometimes if you find something online and it works, it's good. But you should always at least try to figure out what exactly is it doing.
I'm pretty sure I looked at it, but I can't remember right now.
Oh, this one we have to try, right? So there is a lot of parse hints here, and can you try to figure out what is it doing? Let's remove this at least. Those ones are a bit crazy. Is it visible? Yeah. Okay. Oh, maybe I removed something that I shouldn't. Okay, so we will, again, we can always console log things. So, no, time, right? We have this parse int of time, console log hours. What happened, right?
Oh, Marco. If you really solve 422 and get really the time, the answer will really not be 4 hours and 20
No.
minutes. 8 hours and 30
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
But we really need to have that like 4 hours and 30
No.
minutes. effort.
No.
But the correct answer.
Yes, the correct answer is not this one. I don't know if that was on purpose. I didn't do the homework. But again, if you do something like this, it works, but it doesn't. But again, this parse int, if you can
It's already
read,
over.
basically it removes whatever decimals are there, or if it's a string, becomes a number, or if there is a number and spaces and then a number, it removes everything, only leaves the number. It can do a lot of magic stuff. But again, this is not exactly what we want, because we want hours and minutes, right? And in here we had like a full number, and in here now we only have something else, so we should actually kind of do the rest. Oh, God damn it. So let's remove this from here now. If we really want the whole, like how many minutes we took, and this minutes, we will change it. Minutes, and now it still shows 8.64 and 8.64, but this is not minutes, because if this is kilometers per hour, and this is kilometers, then this is hours, as the word kilometer per hour says. So we have hours here, and we want minutes. And as Ricardo said on his answer, something multiplied by 60, right? Or you can just, God damn it, my throat. In any of these solutions, we have the minutes is how many hours times 60. So in here we have time. Now we have like this crazy number, right? And again, this would be the real time in minutes, and we don't want all these things here. I guess we can maybe get rid of it. So no, first int. This is basically how many minutes in total, right? But now and in this one, now let me remember how I solved this. I completely forgot. Sorry. Git. Yes. I need to look at my solutions right now because I'm not sure exactly how I did this part. Yeah, be there. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So we removed all the, or I removed all the, all the nonsense leftovers. We already used this actually some time ago, I think. You guys remember math? Not the subject, but the function. That basically it's that helper that gives us all these functions that we can use. And I think we used it for some exercises, that there is the ceil, which stands for ceiling, which rounds a number up. And of course there is a floor, and we already did this one before, that rounds it down. Right? And all the way up here we had this number, and we know that this is hours, but an hour cannot be dot whatever. So I mean, just by looking at it, we know that it's 8 hours, and that was also a good remark, that we cannot get 4 hours because just by looking there we already know it's 8. So in order to get the hour out of this number, basically we have to remove whatever is outside of there. This would be a good way. So now on this variable hours, we have the hours, and let's just change it here. And we remember this from the string concatenation, even though this one is a number, but because we are adding it to a string, basically. So now we are sending the hours there, right? And now let's just see how it looks. Cool. Now we have 8 hours and 42 minutes. But now we need the leftover minutes, and that might be the one that is a bit more tricky, which basically we need to have 0.64 hours in minutes, right? And we know how to get the 8, right? So now we only need to get the 0.64. So what if we just do, where do we have it? It's on time, right? We have the 8, but we want the rest. So if we do, so time minus whatever we have here. Oh, I'll remove this so that at least we know, we see. So now we have all this thing, which basically it's the leftover of the 8, and we have the 8 here. Let's just console log it hours. So just to have it side by side, at this point, time, it's the 8.64. Then we get whatever is only the rounding down of that one. So we have hours, which is 8, and that one we know it is correct. We don't need to worry with hours anymore. So now we need to calculate how many minutes left. So now if we say time, which is the whole one, minus removing the hours, now we have what we could consider minutes. But again, it's a really, really, really weird number to get it. And it's the minutes in hours. So technically we have to multiply this by 60, right? And now we know that those are exactly the minutes that we have left of this whole calculation here. It's just that it says 38.40000 whatever, and we don't want that all trash there. And now we know we are already using it somewhere here, how to get rid of all that, right? So I actually just removed it. So we can just call it, and this is where. And now I will explain one very important thing there. Minutes. Right. And
I got 38 also.
should it?
Yeah, 38.
Then I have an error on my calculation, which is also possible.
I don't know. I mean,
If 32 is correct, I have a wrong conversation.
Yeah. It could be because by doing the floor, we're kind of removing.
No, I think 38 is correct.
Yeah. Now, the thing that might be a little bit complicated when you see this solution, when you're not that used to program, is this part here, this parse int. Because we are doing a calculation, but again, this is basic mathematics, right? It's just that time and hours have some values that comes from it there. So we are doing this subtraction, then we are multiplying by 60, and that result goes into the parse int. Now, it's completely okay if you have a var and you call it temporary, or in the correct way. And then let's extract this from here because it might be too confusing, and then send it the variable there, and I mean nothing changes. It's completely if you miss the parentheses, then the calculation is wrong, of course, because multiplication only has priority. But if you do something like this, it's completely fine. This can go inside, and okay, the hours can't because then we are using it down there. But yeah, something like this would be okay, would be a good solution. It gives, again, we talked already, whatever is written on a question is not the exact output that we are getting, but that's because the question is misleading us, right? And yeah, this would be a way of doing this exercise. I would understand that in here might be a bit tricky for whoever is not used to program to figure out, like, now where should I subtract, where should I add, is this in hours, is this in whatever. But, and that's something we need to stress a lot. At this stage of your lessons, what I'm more curious about, can I build a function? Can the function take parameters? Does the parameters actually are used in the function? That's what's more important. If this, like, it's a bit wrong, it does not calculate time correct, that's not that important right now, to be honest. Because we are learning the syntax of things. We are learning how to write JavaScript. So if you made a function that takes in the parameter, the exact parameter that we are having here, and you know how to use it in here, and you're returning something, I would not, like, if you deliver that as homework, I would not even complain. I would understand that, okay, this was too painful for me. Sorry, I cannot calculate this. That would be completely fine. And there would be nothing wrong with it. Because, again, it's a bit, sometimes might be a bit too much to ask for you to figure out these things. And if you have questions on how to do these things, how to actually pass arguments or to do those, so don't be worried if it does not return the exact thing that I should or whatever. As long as you would do the function, that would be very, very good already.
Or else there's also plenty of deal, you know. I took a couple of them over the weekend. Doesn't that help?
See, the problem, like I told you before, during the weekend, my issue is that I don't have the mindset yet to translate the exercise that I see into the structure that you just had. So I keep thinking, okay, I want to do it right. And is this right or wrong? And I cannot see it in
Yes.
result.
Yes, but again, at this stage, and even though, and for me, sometimes when I write things for you guys and whatever, I might just pass, like, because for me it might be easy, or for some people here might also be a bit easy because I've read about this or whatever. But again, whatever is asking on these questions, to be honest, the final result, unless of course you already done everything and then the final result is not really there, and if you have a lot of questions on that, we should of course try to figure out what's happening. But if the problem is to start, then I would, again, even just the comments, because that's already a good way of starting. Just write the comments, like I should write the function here that takes a parameter. Because on this exercise, for instance, some of the things are written here. So just by looking at this part here, we know that, okay, we need to write a function that takes an object as a parameter and needs to return a string. That's basically what we've been learning until now. So just by having that, even with nothing inside of it, that would be good. Because that's exactly the question here. And yeah, and for some of you, of course, you might have the question, but where exactly does this go in the real world? That's not the answer we are looking for right now. Right now, the answer is, can I write a function? Can I write a for loop? That's what we need to really, really, really stress on.
That's the thing. I'm sorry, it's
Yeah.
in the same context, but it's not exactly like this exercise. So the thing is, I try to do what you said, like to have the comment and stuff, and I'm not even writing it down. So I try to divide the exercise. If it has like one line, like, okay, create a function, okay, I need to do a function, and then this, and then that, and all of a sudden I discover I should make a loop when I'm texting about it. It's not written. So how did I know, or how the hell should I think that, okay, here
Yeah.
should be a loop?
Yeah, but that for instance, this first exercise would be the same thing. Is what would be the only way of not the only way, because actually there we saw that we could actually just remove the second item and it would solve the exercise. But it's also about thinking, like, how can I achieve this? Like what are the things I've learned until now that I need to use to achieve this? And if there is an array, maybe 99% sure there's going to be a for loop, because that's the only way of going through an array, basically. And again, that's one of the reasons, for instance, why I also like to give you the solutions of some homeworks, because things become very similar at some eventually. Eventually, when you look at an exercise, you think, I've done this already in a completely different way, but the structure is there.
It's not of time.
Yeah. Oops, I'm zooming in. Okay, so this one, series duration of my life. Yeah, this one might be a bit more complicated, but again, if we are trying to solve the whole thing at once, let's go baby steps, always. So basically in here we have now an array, right? Because that's basically what those ones there tell us. And then inside of the array, in each item of the array is an object. And that object has title, days, hours, and minutes, which basically, yeah, this means the time you or me or us, we spend watching those TV shows. And then in here it tells us to calculate how much time a TV show takes of our life, basically. Of course, on an average 80 years, so we should calculate based on 80 years. And then in here it tells us to change the series duration, which is this object. So let's just copy and paste. We have an object here. Oh, come on. I'm not going to change these values, but again, this part of change to include your own, it doesn't say it's optional, but I guess you could understand that that's not what's going to make a big difference here, unless you don't watch the TV show and then everything is 0. Then yes, that's a big difference. But for now, let's just use the same one. Now it says that using these series durations, we should get a text like Game of Thrones took this of my life, Sopranos took that, The Wire that, and then in total. So basically, first, of course, we are asking about 80 years. And again, that's one of the things about solving a lot of exercises a lot of times, is that eventually you will see the keywords here and there. And now we can see that there is the word years in here, right? And there is no years anywhere. So probably we'll have to calculate years, right, out of something. And then of course we need to sum something and calculate a percentage. So we need to calculate percentage of 80, right? Because, yeah, percentage of 80. So again, on this exercise, let me just make sure. So in this exercise, it doesn't tell us what to use. Should we create a function? Should we, like, what do we do? It doesn't tell us anything. And that means that then we can do anything as long as we solve the problem. And one of the main, if we go back to the exercise one, everything is on this file. But as you can imagine, we could have one function wrapping the whole exercise, right? Nothing. And then just passing in the array as arguments, like on the second exercise, where specifically said on the exercise we should do this. But on this one doesn't say anything. But maybe we could start by not doing it and then do it, just to organize and do things. So first of all, we need to calculate the time of things. I can see here minutes is 0. I'll just add some minutes on some of them, so it's not 0 all the time. Yeah. So now, because we have an array, and basically what we want is to sum up all this time, right? And now we might not know how to transform minutes into hours or into days or into whatever. And I get it. That sometimes might be a bigger headache than to solve the whole exercise. But it would be completely okay if you just start writing and just sum. I don't know, it's telling the years. Let's just do the days instead. Like, if you just write, I don't know how to calculate years, I'm calculating how many days I spend watching. That would be fine as well. Because again, that's not the exact solution, but we are at least doing something. So now, because we have an array, of course, we have to loop the array. Index 0, index less than, what's the name of the series? Series durations dot length index plus plus. So now, now again, we know how to get each item of the array is not with that one, is with this one. So if we just do something like this and we try it out, okay, now we have all the things here. And as I will duplicate this one just to, as we know, this is an object. So this series duration index is an object. So we can ask for the keys, or in this, the properties of this object. And again, just by typing the dot, we can see what we can ask for. So let's just see if nothing breaks. No. So Game of Thrones, the name is Game of Thrones, blah, 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 blah. But at this stage, we are not worried with the names. So let's just get the, I don't know, the days, right? Days is correct. Now, one important thing by this output, we need the total per each, and we need the total, right? So which one it's easier to calculate? I would guess is the total, because we just need to sum things over and over again. So if we have, and now we just go, we just write this, we have a total, and like every total should start at 0 or at something that does not affect the result. And now total plus equal, and let's just do this here, console.log total. And now it shows 8, but I mean, we are summing up the days, and just by looking at the numbers up there, it's quite easy to figure out that. Now, why did I write the total outside of the for loop? It's because if it goes here, oh, first of all, I cannot, this one is a tricky one, only if it's, because in here it would get resetted to 0 at every single iteration, every single time, because we are saying go to 0. So the next time, go to 0. The next time, go to 0. So that's not a total. Total cannot go to 0 every time we go to the next item. So that's why it has to be outside. That's also why when I moved this inside, I got an error, right? Let's just go all the way back. So I got an error here because it's not defined. Actually, I think if I would do this, yeah, that's why I should not use var. in here, I used var instead of let, and as I explained it before, if you use let, it can only be used on its own scope, and if you try to use the variable before before defining it, it doesn't really get triggered. You cannot really use it, but var, you can basically use it anywhere at any time. So as you can see, total it's 2 only, because the first iteration total was 0 here, then total it was 0 plus 3, then on the next one, because we didn't got here, we went all the way up. The next one total is 0 now, so it's no longer 3 now, but because that one is 3 again, so it went up in this 2, and then it got printed 2. So yeah, if you have a total and it's inside of a for loop, probably it should not be. There might be reasons to be, but this one should not. So in here we have a total days, and this is, let's just rename it days, and days, right? So now by having total days, you can imagine that hours and minutes are just copy paste, and that's completely fine to do it. So, and we will just do this hours, minutes, and now I will remove this one here. I'll add that one. Now, if you copy paste, please be careful, because people tend to make a lot of mistakes copy pasting, more they should. So always remember to make sure things work. So now I duplicated all those ones. Now just rename to let as well, because, and down here I'm using the property of the object that we want, and I'm console logging it down here. So I mean, if the calculation should be correct, I guess they look like they are. So now we already have the total of time. Again, even if you don't have the time to do the homework and you deliver something like this, it's already very good, because you already did a for loop with objects and you summed up things, and that's good. that's really good already. But now what we need to do is to actually calculate in years. We know that we have percentages to calculate, but in order to calculate the percentage, first we need the year. So yeah, in this case, we need to transform days into years, and hours into years, and minutes into years. But we can just transform minutes into hours, into days, and then the whole thing into years, right? That maybe would make more sense. God damn it. So how do we do that? Any ideas? So we need a year, right? How would we do this from, I don't know how many days did we have here? 8 days. And this is, we can always ask our friend Google, right? Years. Usually JavaScript is always one of the first ones. This looks way too complicated for us, right? Of days, 2 days, month. No, that's not it. Okay, days to months. That could help, maybe. Oh, I hate this one. Any ideas? Should I open my solutions?
You want to declare the days, 8 days
Yeah, into years.
into year. I think it must be the 8 divided by 365, the days of year.
Yeah. That should do something, right? I mean, of course, we can assume that some years it's a bit weird, but let's forget about that one.
Essentially.
Yeah.
That's why we need.
Yeah. So, as Tamira said, if we divide the number of days, wait, there's something calling me. Problem marketing. Divided by 365. Yeah,
The days
sorry.
of the year.
Yeah. So if we do this, this should give us the days. Again, it is true. Some years is not this. So, but let's ignore that. That's not. Most of the time is this. So if we do this, now we have years here. Stop.
So you definitely
Freaking
get that small decimal number.
Yeah. And of course, this is days. Now, we might need, of course, to transfer, not might, we will need to transform hours into days, right? So, days. So if we have 10 hours, how many days are there?
Divided 24.
Exactly. If we have days, now we want hours, right? Hours. And we have minutes. We have 30 minutes. This, we already done it before. So, 60. Yeah. So by doing this, so we can convert minutes to hours. We can convert hours to days, and we can convert days to years, right? So basically, we have what we are asking for in here, because in here we have minutes. If we go back to our object, we have minutes, we have hours, and we have days, and we want years. So we can convert one to the other, one to the other, and one to the other, right? So I'll comment this one out. Let's just try to do that here. So, and of course, should we use the total? Let's use the total, yes. So now the total of days, and we want, I'll just make another variable here so we don't mess up things. So now we want the total of years. Total. And we need to convert total of minutes to hours, right? So why is my phone? Come on, just stop calling. So let's start with the minutes. We have this one. If we divide this one into 60, as we saw down here, and I'll comment this out so it doesn't do anything. This does not give us the total of years. This gives us the total of hours in minutes. So in minutes, right? And now we want to convert the total of minutes in hours, sorry, in hours. And now we want to convert the hours in days. And in here, we already have the total of minutes in hours, right? So we can just use that one. But first, we need to do this one divided by 24, right? That's this one. We have it here. And we just want to add whatever. No, sorry. We need to add it inside here. So based on what we described on here, this is the total of minutes in hours, right? So in here we have hours. Now we want to transform the whole hours into days. But in here we already have hours, so we just need to just add it together. And then now this is hours in days. And up here we have the total of days. And we know how to transform days into years. So if we do something like days in years, so this divided by 365 is in years, and now in here we just need to do the hours in days. So now this one, it's the total in it's not really the total because it's inside of the for loop, but this would be a total in years of the whole calculation that we have here. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Well spotted, because that would be an error for sure. So now we can actually move this outside, right? So we have total in days, hours, minutes, total in years equals 0. And because in here we have all the ones that we have, so we can just start replacing them, right? Because in here they already get added, so in here they should get added. Now if we do this and the hours, oops, sorry, here, and then of course the total in years plus equal not this one, this one in here, right? You guys think this would work? Where is it? Total in years 0.05 something. Okay. Yeah.
This plane has come, so should I?
Yeah, if Peter is
Peter
there.
said so.
Yeah, but we need to find Peter then.
Yeah. Okay.
Shouldn't you move line order 4 to outside the loop? Otherwise you end up adding the days multiple times.
Yeah, true. Because all this is inside of this for loop. So, and actually, this should just be, yeah. Maybe. It makes some sense, right? I don't know if Mirawi is going to get testify outside or not. Otherwise, we would make a break soonish and then continue the explanation because there is a lot of stuff to do here still. Should we make a break